Hi, everybody. Today we are going to discuss respiration from the 10th biology syllabus. Welcome to Mohan Ram Biology. Subscribe for more videos. Here, what is respiration? In general, you might have studied in earlier classes, respiration is breathing in and breathing out. But actually, it is not just expiration and inspiration. The process in which energy is produced is called respiration. Respiration is the only process by which the living organisms gets produced their oxygen, their energy by utilizing oxygen. And here we are going to discuss the definition of respiration and types of respiration like aerobic and anaerobic respiration in animals and human respiratory system and respiration of plants. Let us see what is respiration. It is not just exchange of gases from atmosphere to internal organs and it just enter into the body. Then there is internal respiration, internal exchange of gases from blood to tissue. Then oxygen enters into the cell. At cell level, it is called as cellular respiration, where oxygen is utilized and produced energy. So breathing in and breathing out are the first step in which exchange of gases takes place in between atmosphere and respiratory organs. Various organisms have various type of respiratory organs. This is the holistic equation of respiration, summarized equation. Glucose gets oxidized to produce carbon dioxide and water to release energy. So first evidence is given by the Joseph Priestley by this experiment by utilizing these things: candle, bell jar, rat, mint plant. So where he get identified that some gas is releasing from the plants which is required for the burning of the candle and for the survival of the rat is the first most step, and he is the Priestley who did that experiment by the sequential process. He identified the gas, but the gas was named by the father of modern chemistry, Anthony Laurent Lavoisier, who named that gas as oxygen. Is the very important gas. So these are the steps put forward for the more research on photosynthesis and respiration. There are different events in respiration, as we mentioned earlier. Breathing, so entering of gases into the body, then external respiration, exchange of gases, and transportation by the blood, and then internal respiration, and finally it reaches to the cell where cellular respiration takes place, the site of the production of energy. So here we are observing that air enters into the lungs, then where it is entered into the blood and transported to the tissue and enter into the cell. As we discussed earlier, so respiration takes place in various methods in various organisms. Here we are observing amoeba, a unicellular organism. There is no any organ system because it is unicellular organism. By the diffusion method, directly the cell has direct contact with atmosphere, then oxygen enters into the cell, carbon dioxide released out without involving any respiratory organ. And then earthworm, it performs cutaneous respiration. Respiration through skin is called as cutaneous respiration, where skin is moistured and it lives in moisture burrows and skin produces mucus, where oxygen gets dissolved in that mucus and diffuses into the body. The skin gets supplied by the many blood capillaries to get exchange of gases in the skin. So oxygen is diffused through skin and carbon dioxide is diffused out through skin. Such respiration is called as cutaneous respiration. It is performed by the earthworm and leech, and as well as some amphibians like frog and salamander. So the skin plays a major role. And coming to the insects, arthropodans, particularly they have 10 pairs of spiracles, openings of the body through which air enters into the body, and total body is covered by pipes called trachea. So hence this system is called as tracheal system. So here we can clearly observe the spiracles in the pupa of the cockroach. So air enters through the spiracles and distributed by the trachea. This type of respiratory system is called as tracheal respiration. It occurs in insects like cockroach, housefly, grasshopper, and these type of insects perform the tracheal respiration. And another specialty of these insects, they do not have red color blood. Hemoglobin is absent. Blood has no role in transportation of gases. And coming to the vertebrates, fish or the aquatic organisms, they have to get the oxygen from the water. Hence the aquatic respiration is performed by the gills, a special type of respiratory organs. Fish gets the water in from by the opening of its mouth, and when it closes its mouth, water pushed out through the gills at the time of exchange of gases takes place. The aquatic organisms have to get oxygen from the water. So where oxygen is dissolved in the water, that oxygen is collected by that aquatic organisms. And amphibians like frog performs different type of respiration. It performs cutaneous respiration and as well as pulmonary respiration. So by the lungs. So nostrils open into the mouth cavity, then it enters into the lungs. And here we are observing grasshopper, tracheal respiration, fish, aquatic respiration with the help of gills, and lion or any other reptile, bird, mammal, all these classes organisms performs pulmonary respiration. Respiration through gills is called bronchial respiration. Respiration through lungs is called pulmonary respiration. So pulmonary respiration occurs in mammals, birds, and reptiles. As we discussed, respiration by the process of diffusion in unicellular organisms, and by respiration through skin is called cutaneous respiration. Respiration through gills is called bronchial respiration. Respiration through tracheal system is called as tracheal respiration. Respiration through lungs is called pulmonary respiration. So as we coming into the human respiration, as already we mentioned, external respiration is the first step through which air is inhaled and air is exhaled. Exchange of gases takes place in between atmosphere and lungs. So in that process, various organs are involved: nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, entered into the alveoli. So nostrils are the opening through which air enters into the nasal cavity, where it gets warmed and cleaned by the hairs it is filtered by the help of air, which is guarded by the nostril cavity, and mucus humidifies the air, and then it enters into the trachea, where it is ciliated epithelial cells gets filtered that, and it enters into the bronchus, and then bronchioles are the fine branches of the bronchus, and each and every bronchiole open into the alveoli. Alveoli are the bunches of grapes. It looks like bunches of grapes. So many alveoli are found in the lungs. So the overall respiratory system and its process we can observe: upper respiratory tract, nose, nasal cavity, pharynx and larynx; the lower tract, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. So how much oxygen diffusion takes place or exchange takes place in our body? So 21% is the oxygen present in atmosphere, and in breathing gas, when we breathe out it, so it is 16.5%, and carbon dioxide in atmosphere is 0.04, and when we breathe out it's about 4.4 according to the latest data. And nitrogen, there is no change in breathe in breathe out gases, 78%, it remains constant, because already nitrogen presents in the lungs, hence there is no diffusion. So how can we prove that we are releasing carbon dioxide in the process of respiration? When we blow the air which is exhaling into the lime water, it turns into the milky white. So it shows that carbon dioxide is more in exhaling air. Oxygen is also present, but carbon dioxide percentage is increased. So what is the air passage or air pathway in human body? Is nostrils, nasal cavity, larynx, trachea, bronchus, bronchiole, and enters into the lung and in alveoli. So this is the flow chart which shows that air passage in human body: nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and blood capillaries. Blood enters into the blood by the exchange of gases by the simple method of diffusion. So by this way, oxygen enters into the blood. So lungs are very delicate organs, the spongy and elastic organs which found in thoracic cavity. In between the two lungs, heart is present. That's why left lung is little bit smaller than the right lung, because heart is slightly tilted towards the left side. And how get air enter into the body? In this process, ribs and diaphragm plays a major role. In diaphragm plays a major role in male, ribs plays a major role in female. Where these are contracted, the size of thoracic cavity will increase and lung size will increase. Then air enters into the lungs directly from atmosphere because of the pressure difference. Then air passes into the alveoli. Alveolus is a room-like structure which is covered by epithelial tissue and supplied by many blood capillaries. So where diffusion takes place, oxygen and carbon dioxide diffusion takes place. Oxygen is taken by the red blood cells and carbon dioxide is given by blood, and exchange takes place in alveoli because it is just covered by epithelial tissue and exchange of gases takes place. So here we concluded that external respiration is completed. Now internal respiration. Blood enters, oxygen entered into the blood, and then oxygen is transported by red blood cells. As we know that hemoglobin is a protein and pigment which is present in RBC. So each and every RBC possesses hemoglobin, and one hemoglobin molecule consists 4 iron and 4 oxygen molecules transport by the each and every hemoglobin molecule. So hemoglobin transports both oxygen and as well as carbon dioxide. So internal respiration, just exchange between external atmosphere and by the respiratory organs like lungs. Then blood enters into the internal respiration. Oxygen enters into the blood and transported by the blood to the tissue, and from the tissue it diffuses into the each and every cell of the body. So what takes place inside the cell, that is called as internal respiration. Still energy is not produced, though where the lungs role is finished. So hence we can say lungs cannot directly produce energy. So air, now oxygen is entered into the tissue and then enters into the cell. So where the glucose molecule gets oxidized in the cell, hence it is called as cellular respiration, respiration at cell level. So for that, one important cell organelle is required. Where that cell organelle is present, particularly in eukaryotic cells, they perform that type of respiration. So here is the overall process of respiration regulation by the medulla oblongata of the brain, which is the part controls involuntary organs. So medulla oblongata controls all this involuntary action of the respiration. And that important organelle is mitochondria. So here, if mitochondria is present, that cell performs aerobic respiration. If mitochondria is absent, that cell performs anaerobic respiration. There is no other option. So for performance of aerobic respiration, mitochondria is required. So aerobic respiration is nothing but respiration in presence of oxygen. Some organisms perform anaerobic respiration without presence of oxygen. They can able to produce little amount of energy by the utilizing glucose. So aerobic respiration requires oxygen and as well as the substrate through which energy is produced in the cell organelle called mitochondria. So is aerobic respiration. So respiration is of two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Particularly aerobic respiration in cellular respiration. So mitochondria break down the food molecules to produce ATP. Is the organic energy source which is produced by the mitochondria. It is called as powerhouse of the cell, which produces ATP and stores ATP. ATP is called as energy currency of the body. We are performing many actions. For each and every action, ATP is the energy utilized. By the breaking down of glucose with the help of oxygen, such chemical energy, ATP molecules are produced. 1 ATP is equal to 7,200 calories of energy. When we see the structure of mitochondria, it is the cell organelle which is covered by two cell membranes. The inner cell membrane has many foldings called as cristae, and it is filled with matrix. So where respiratory enzymes are present and where aerobic respiration takes place. And in that process, glucose is not directly break down into the carbon dioxide. So it is multi-stepped process. In first step, glucose is the 6-carbon compound break down into pyruvic acid molecules, which is having 3 carbons. 2 pyruvates are formed. This process is called as glycolysis. Then that pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondria. As we mentioned, powerhouse of the cell, also called as cell furnace. So what are the requirements to production of ATP in mitochondria? We can observe here. Oxygen required, enzymes required, energy giving substances, substrates are required. So the first step is called glycolysis. Glucose is converted into the 2 pyruvic acid molecules. And then this pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondria. In that mitochondria, it undergoes Krebs cycle. So inside mitochondria means it is aerobic respiration. In presence of oxygen only it takes place. Glycolysis is common for both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Krebs cycle is only for aerobic respiration. By producing ATP, carbon dioxide energy is released in the Krebs cycle. One glucose molecule is break down to produce net gain of 36 ATP molecules. So to prove that CO2 is releasing in respiration, this is the experiment. We need germinating seeds and lime water is put in a bottle and closed. So after some time, lime water turns into the milky white. We can prove that respiration takes place in the germinating seeds and released carbon dioxide. If you take dry seeds, it takes some more time. And the same experiment to prove that heat is liberating during respiration. So with the help of germinating seeds, and here we place the thermometer in the midst of that bottle with the help of one whole rubber cork. So in regular intervals, we can observe the increase in the temperature in the thermometer. When we take dry seeds, the rise in temperature is very less. So as we discussed, so glucose is break down into the pyruvic acid is called glycolysis. There is no requirement of oxygen. This is the common step for both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. If oxygen is present, pyruvic acid converted to the carbon dioxide and water and energy. It is called aerobic. In anaerobic, pyruvic is break down into the ethanol and carbon dioxide, or sometimes lactic acid and carbon dioxide. This is called anaerobic respiration. So alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation, it is so 2 ways. And here, by using yeast in beverages industries and bakeries, the yeast is the fungi which is used and which produces alcohol by utilizing the glucose, and little amount of ATP is produced for this process. Oxygen is not required. In our muscle also anaerobic respiration takes place. Muscle can perform both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. In athletes, particularly which are in short term running race, 100 meters running race particularly, they perform anaerobic respiration, and glucose turns into the pyruvic acid, then pyruvic acid converted into the lactic acid to release energy. It is the instant process, quick releasing of energy, whereas in aerobic respiration it takes some time, so hence it is the short term process. So energy is released by the conversion of pyruvic acid into the lactic acid. And this is the experiment to show that carbon dioxide is released in anaerobic respiration with the help of yeast, and temperature is increased in anaerobic respiration. Here glucose solution mixed with yeast and placed in the bottle and closed by the using paraffin, and a tube is fixed into the lime water, and the temperature to observe the change in temperature we place thermometer. And how the respiration takes place in plants? Do they have any respiratory organs? Through stomata, exchange of gases takes place in particularly green parts of the plants like leaves. So lower epidermis possesses number of stomata through which exchange of gases takes place. Stomata is a part of epidermal tissue which is guarded by two guard cells, kidney shaped guard cells. So when it opens, generally during daytime, exchange of gases takes place. And some plants, they possess lenticels which are present in the stem. So lenticels can also help for exchange of gases which are present in the stems. So they are just openings which are present in the bark, not in green parts of the plant, in older stems. So here you can able to observe the lenticels clearly. So stomata and lenticels are present in aerial parts, and as well as another part in some plants which grows in mangrove forest, in marshy lands, where roots do not get supply of oxygen or air. Those roots come out into the air called aerial roots. So these roots, with the help of pneumatophores, oxygen enters, air enters into the roots. So particularly in mangrove forests, so where the plants are growing in marshy lands like Abyssinia, and this process takes place. And so when we compare or differentiate the photosynthesis and respiration, so photosynthesis and respiration are the quite opposite process. In photosynthesis, glucose is produced. In respiration, glucose is breakdown. Oxygen is required for respiration. Oxygen is produced in photosynthesis. Respiration takes place throughout the day. So photosynthesis takes place only in presence of light. It depends on light. Chlorophyll is not required for respiration. Chlorophyll is required for photosynthesis. Respiration uses food. Photosynthesis produces food. And chloroplast is the cell organelle in which photosynthesis takes place. Mitochondria is the cell organelle which is required for respiration. So here, by observing the equations of photosynthesis and respiration, we can easily write the differences between photosynthesis and respiration. Glucose released in respiration, oxygen released in respiration, oxygen is produced in photosynthesis. So where it perform, we can write easily the differences. The photosynthesis takes place in chloroplast and respiration takes place in mitochondria in presence of light in option throughout the day. Carbon dioxide and water are required. Glucose and oxygen are required for respiration. The glucose and oxygen are produced in photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide and water are produced in respiration. In presence of light, energy is taken from the light, and here energy is produced by breaking down of chemical bonds. And what about burning or combustion? Is it similar to respiration? In both processes, oxygen is required. So food is required. When the substances is burned, carbon dioxide and water energy is released. So it is quite similar to the respiration. Are the both process are same? No. So hence, what are the differences between combustion and respiration? Combustion is a physical process actually, which is a very fast process, requires high temperature, and it occurs in anywhere outside the living organism. Energy is released in a single step, where compared to cellular respiration, it takes place only in living organisms. Slow process energy is released in multi steps, and it occurs only in living organisms, and energy is released in heat energy and as well as chemical energy in the form of ATP. So these are the major differences between respiration and combustion. Combustion takes place outside the body. It is a physical process. Respiration takes place in the living organism. And these are the differences. Once again, we can recapitulate them. So initially, temperature is required for combustion. We have to give the energy. So in respiration, only energy releases, no need to give energy, and in combustion, charring of the substance takes place. In respiration, there is no charring. And similarities are also important. What are the similarities between combustion and respiration? Both process requires oxygen, and in both process burn glucose and produce energy and convert one form of energy to another. So these are the similarities. In both process oxygen utilized, in both process glucose is utilized and produced energy in both process. In both process carbon dioxide is released. So these are the similarities between combustion and respiration. So this is the total unit of respiration. Thank you for watching Mohan Ram Biology. If you like, subscribe my channel Mohan Ram Biology. Have a nice day.